Tuesday, July 28. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. At Tuesday morning, Jamaica had 84 active cases of COVID-19. 11 new confirmed cases were reported over the last 24 hours. The new cases consist of 7 females and 4 males, aged 22 to 68 years, with addresses in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, St. Anne, St. James, St. Mary, Trelawney, and Westmoreland. 10 of the cases are imported. 1 is under investigation. Today, the island has recorded an overall 853 cases of the virus. 714 people have recovered. 45 cases were repatriated. Unfortunately, 10 persons have died. There are no critically ill cases at this time. The World Health Organization says a key committee will meet later this week to discuss COVID-19's emergency status 6 months after it was declared.
When I declared the public health emergency of international concern on the 30th of January, the highest level of alarm under international law, there were less than 100 cases outside of China and no deaths. As required under the international health regulations, I will reconvene the emergency committee later this week to re-evaluate the pandemic and advise me accordingly.
Prior to COVID-19, the WHO had only made such declarations 5 times since the international health regulations changed in 2007 for swine flu, polio, Zika, and twice for Ebola outbreaks in Africa. The current pandemic is seen as the most severe. The WHO has faced criticisms from certain quarters for its response, with some charging it was acting too slowly, something the organization itself strenuously denies.
I'm immensely proud of our organization, WHO, and its people, incredible people, and their efforts. Within days of learning of the first cases in China, we published extensive guidance on how to find, test, and treat cases and protect health workers. We also published the first protocol for testing for the virus and immediately started working with manufacturers in Germany to produce tests and ship them to countries most in need. We convened hundreds of scientists to develop a roadmap for research. We have brought together thousands of experts from all over the world in many disciplines to analyze the evolving evidence and distill it into guidance.
Tens of thousands of Caribbean people rely on tourism for a living. The coronavirus COVID-19 has dealt a serious blow to this vital industry. Caribbean governments are working together to re-establish the region as a global destination for tourists in a post-pandemic world. Marlon Samuels has more in this report.
Tourism is the heartbeat of the Caribbean region. Its economies are heavily dependent on tourism. The dependence was seriously shaken by the coronavirus COVID-19. It resulted in the closure of airports and ports across the region and reduced the flood of hundreds of thousands of tourists to a mere trickle. This meant the closure of hotels and other service industries, which left many workers without jobs and government coffers with declining revenues. It also showed clearly that tourist-based economies throughout the Caribbean region have limited social safety nets. As the Caribbean countries slowly reopen, they are faced with other challenges, including the upcoming hurricane season. As one writer puts it, we are all in the same COVID-19 storm, but not the same boat. The GDP for many of the islands in the Caribbean is generated from tourism. This means their economies are more likely to be wrecked by COVID-19 than other countries with more diversified economies. To find solutions to the issues now being experienced, a series of economic forums are being held. They provide an opportunity for Caribbean people to engage with the experts, exchange ideas, and offer suggestions for issues that impact their lives and livelihoods. The panelists on Tuesday, July 28 at 7 p.m. include Jamaica's Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett, They will be discussing ways of reviving the Caribbean's tourism industry. You can see it live here on PBCJ. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Under the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project, 42 bridges have been earmarked for repairs and improvement. This from Prime Minister Andrew Holness in his address at the opening of the East Palm Bridge in Port Antonio, Portland.
There are other bridge projects in Portland that are in the pipeline. So listen out. The Craig Mill Bridge project, we expect to go to tender for that in September 2020. Yes. Under the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project, 42 bridges are earmarked for reconstruction, rehabilitation, or repair. Of the 42, 13 are located in the parish of Portland. These include the Sphinx and Mulatto bridges between Mansion Hill and Fair Prospect. And then you have the Hector's River Bridge, you have the White River 1 Bridge, and you have the Black River bridges between St. Thomas, the border of St. Thomas and Long Road. The Sphinx and Mulatto Bridge are recommended for replacement, reconstruction, while the Hector's White River and Black River are earmarked for rehabilitation to involve primarily the refurbishing of the deck of those bridges.
Mr. Holness said the timeline for the scope of work is 5 years. The Interception of Communications Order 2020 was approved by the Senate during its last sitting at Gordon House. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, piloted the order in the upper house. In doing so, he stressed its importance to the island security apparatus. Melvin Pennant has the details.
Minister Samuda said that the order will build on the Interception of Communications Act, which was enacted in 2002.
The order laid in the Senate today will provide additional structure and expediency in the approval of requests for telecommunications information for the strict purposes of advancing Jamaica's fight against these extreme life and death situations. The persons designated are holders of high offices within our security architecture, and their character and work in support of Jamaica's national security imperatives are indeed above reproach. Mr. President, the order gives effect to the following. The following persons are prescribed as designated persons for the purposes of Section 16 of the Act: the Chief of Defense Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force, the Head of the Military Intelligence Use of the Military Intelligence Unit of the Jamaica Defense Force, the Commissioner of Police of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Assistant Commissioner in charge of the Narcotics Unit of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Assistant Commissioner in charge of the National Intelligence Bureau of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and finally, the Director General of the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency. Mr. President, it is imperative and indeed critical that we provide our security forces with all the resources and efficiencies necessary and that are available in order for them to effectively carry out their duties.
The minister made a crucial distinction as it relates to Section 16 of the Interception of Communications Act, relating to the disclosure of telecommunications data.
This order, as we are contemplating here for affirmative action, does not speak to the access of the content of that communication. It speaks to the fact that the communication happened. I think that distinction is particularly important as we weigh issues of privacy and other concerns that ones may have. This speaks to whether or not the communication happened when it happened, not to the content of any communication. It's a major difference, Senator Knight.
Opposition Senator K.D. Knight welcomed the amendment order.
It is a great tool in our ability to fight crime, because a lot of the criminal activity that takes place, the use of the telephone is an integral part of it.
Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
More than 40,000 local fisheries stakeholders will benefit from the implementation of the Promoting Community-Based Climate Resilience in the Fisheries Sector project. The $4.87 million 5-year World Bank funded initiative aims to enhance climate resilient practices among fishing and fish farming communities across Jamaica. The initiatives include investment and diversification in fisheries-based alternatives and the development of climate-resilient fisheries and aquaculture policies and regulations. The project, being spearheaded by the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, was recently launched at the Treasure Beach Sports Park in St. Elizabeth. 73-year-old Neville Livingston, more popularly known as Bunny Wailer, has been hospitalized in Kingston. He was reportedly admitted due to complications related to a stroke he suffered in October 2018. The reggae legend has reportedly been distraught since his life partner, who suffers from dementia, wandered away from their home on May 23 and has not been seen since. The search for her continues. Bunny Wailer formed the Wailers along with Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. A 3-time Grammy Award winner, he is considered one of the long-time standard bearers of reggae music. In October 2017, he was awarded the Order of Merit by the Jamaican government, the nation's 4th highest honor. In November 2019, he received a Pinnacle Award in New York from the Coalition to Preserve Reggae. He was also given a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Jamaica Reggae Industry Association. Now, for the latest shifts and movements in the financial markets, let's join Gabriel Thompson with today's business report.
Proven Investments Limited is reporting a net profit of close to $30 million for the financial year ending March 31, 2020. Results adjusted for gain and associated charges came to $11.04 million. This represents a 61.26% increase in core earning compared to 2019's $6.85 million earned. Co-founder and CEO of Proven Management, Christopher Williams, said the robust growth demonstrates the disciplined execution of the proven strategy. In a report published recently, the entity said it was eager to identify post-COVID opportunities. Contributions to Proven's profits were from but not limited to associate company JMMB Group Limited, which contributed $10.35 million, and Proven Wealth Limited, which reported profit of $2.51 million. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 365 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 78 stocks, of which 32 advanced, 36 declined, and 10 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 3 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Access Financial Services Limited, and BARITA Investments. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and BERGER Paints Jamaica. Trading firm were Caribbean Assurance Brokers, Siboney Group Limited, and JMMB Group Limited 7.25%. Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with 9.8 million units, followed by Mailpack Group Limited with 2.8 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 2.4 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Monday, July 27, ended trading at $147.20. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $111.31. The pound sterling traded for $189.81, and the euro ended trading at $174.17. Oil prices were steady on Tuesday as hopes for additional U.S. measures to stimulate the economy countered a demand outlook dampened by rising of coronavirus cases across the globe. Brent crude futures rose 7 cents to $43.48 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 11 cents to $41.49 a barrel. That's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, the Met Service in St. Lucia is advising the public not to become complacent following the uneventful passage of Tropical Storm Gonzalo on the weekend. The forecast of heavy rainfall and flash floods did not pan out, leaving some citizens with cynical responses. We get more in this HCS News Force report.
Experts predict this year's hurricane season will be above average, with many keeping their eyes to the skies in anticipation for heavy showers and strong winds. The island had been scorched by blistering temperatures, leading to severe drought conditions and the declaration of a water emergency. News that Tropical Gonzalo was headed the island's way and was packing a punch sent scores of St. Lucians into overdrive in anticipation of an onslaught of torrential downpours, but that was not to be. According to Director of Met Services Andre Joaillet, the forecasts by the experts are intended to be a guide given the unpredictability of the weather. While Tropical Gonzalo failed to live up to the billing, the cyclone still made history of a technical dubious kind.
It is a forecast, and there's a certain percentage of it being right and a percentage being wrong. So we saw history being made that a system actually stayed about 10 degrees and went right across the Atlantic Ocean and stayed at that position, because the spinning of the earth has an effect where it causes the systems to go northward, and that did not take effect.
Some members of society expressed angst that the initial forecasts of heavy rains and flooding failed to come to pass. Experts warn that such cynicism can be dangerous. Joaillet sought to defend the weather tracking systems and put the various water advisories and the need to take heed into perspective.
They use climate models, and a model is as good as the input, the information that you put into it. This is the atmosphere. You cannot measure all the variables in the atmosphere. So the institutions try as best as they can to give a good forecast. And it is a good thing that we were prepared. I think I noticed a lot of persons going out and doing shopping and stuff. So this is the beginning of the season, and there is more to come.
Joaillet reminds the public that the months of August and September are peak periods for adverse weather conditions. The Director for Met Services evoked memories of St. Lucia's well-documented experience of devastating tropical cyclones. He urged St. Lucians not to let their guards down and throw caution to the wind. These systems can kill.
I would just like them to ask questions about 1980, Hurricane Allen, 1994, Debbie, 2010, that was Thomas, 2013, Christmas Eve trough. Weather affects us. It's just that it does not happen every year. So we don't know when it will come around. Last year, or 2017, was Dominica's turn. Right? We had Category 5 hurricane. So we actually are getting more, the systems are getting more severe, and we should be prepared.
While St. Lucia was spared the ravages of a tropical cyclone last weekend, the coast of West Africa continues to spur more systems as the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season reaches its apex in the next few months. Joaillet reveals that a tropical depression midway in the Atlantic is ripe for further development. The system, which is about 1,000 miles away, is expected to pass north of the island. The Met Office says it is currently being monitored. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
Trinidad and Tobago's latest COVID-19 positive patient was unwell for at least 6 days before visiting a doctor. This revelation from Dr. Naresh Nandaram, the Principal Medical Officer, Epidemiology attached to the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health official also confirmed that this latest case has resulted in the closure of his workplace and a school in East Trinidad. TTT News' Crystal Wilson has that story.
COVID-positive patient number 148 is confirmed to be a 43-year-old man who tested positive for the virus at the Arima Health Facility on Sunday night. Confirmation of the latest development came on Monday during the Ministry of Health's virtual press conference. According to Principal Medical Officer Epidemiology attached to the Ministry of Health, Dr. Naresh Nandaram, the latest positive patient was in contact with at least 8 people at his home, including an 11-year-old student of the Takariga Presbyterian School. Dr. Nandaram said the Ministry of Health has notified the school's principal and others who were in direct contact with patient 148.
There are at least 8 persons in the household, at least 3 adult males, 3 adult females, and 2 children. One of the children is an SCA student at the Takarigo Presbyterian School. During the course of last night, we've been in contact with the principal of that school and have advised that the school that be closed, and we're in the process of contact tracing the students and their families.
Dr. Nandram also added that patient 148 went against public health guidelines and reported for work, although he exhibited symptoms 6 days prior to seeking medical attention.
This individual went to work, and we are in the process of testing everyone at work that he's been in contact with this morning. And in addition to that was a delivery driver, and there's several other companies that we have contacted and will be continuing to liaise with regard to testing persons that may have been exposed.
Last week, the Marval RC School was ordered closed by the Ministry of Health after an 11-year-old SCA pupil tested positive for the coronavirus, along with 7 other family members. To this end, Health Minister Terence Dayal Singh reminded members of the public of the COVID-19 public health guidelines.
Wear masks, stay home if you are ill, isolate yourself if you are ill, don't go to work, don't send your children to school, just stay home if you are ill and get tested.
The latest case is pending epidemiological investigation. The Ministry of Health said all established protocols have been implemented. Crystal Wilson, TTT News.
Tributes continue to pour in for the late Barbadian Prime Minister Owen Arthur. Mr. Arthur, who was Barbados' 5th Prime Minister, was hospitalized in mid-July with heart complications and was in the intensive care unit.
Tributes continue to pour in for former Prime Minister Owen Seymour Arthur as Barbados enters a second day of national mourning. The 70-year-old former leader died yesterday at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The business community has joined in the tributes. The Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry said Arthur was an exemplary leader who contributed to the development of Barbados and the region at large, especially as it relates to economic stability, development and growth. Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Edward Clark, described Arthur as an outstanding Caribbean statesman, a strong political leader and gifted economist. In a tearful tribute, prominent businessman Ralph Busy Williams described Professor Arthur as a visionary.
I am very saddened by the passing of our ex-Prime Minister Owen Arthur, who eventually became a friend of mine, and I had great respect for him. I remember meeting him first when we were trying to get permission to build Port St. Charles, and he eventually decided he would lock us all in the cabinet room with all the government bureaucrats, and he announced at that meeting that he was leaving the room and locking the door, and we would either come to a decision on whether the project was going to be approved, or we would decide otherwise. But there was going to be no more wasting of time. Now that project proved to me that Mr. Owen Arthur was a visionary. Port St. Charles brought over $350 million into Barbados in direct investments.
In sports, we kick off with football. The Confederation of North Central American and Caribbean Association Football, CONCACAF, is changing its World Cup qualifying hexagonal to octagonal in response to the novel corona pandemic and delaying the start until June. The United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, Jamaica, and Honduras received buys directly to the octagonal, which CONCACAF announced on Monday. CONCACAF's other 30 nations will compete for 3 additional spots in the final round. The octagonal will take place with 4 games per team in next June's double FIFA international match window. This will be followed by 2 apiece in September, October, and November 2021, and 2 each in January and March 2022. Group winners will advance to a home-and-home total goals second round next March. The second round winners will advance to the octagonal. The top 3 teams in the octagonal will qualify for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The 4th place nations will advance to an intercontinental playoff in June 2020. A 33-game Caribbean Premier League 2020 tournament will kick off next month. Defending champions Barbados Tridents will square off against St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. The Guyana Amazon Warriors will take on Tobago Knight Riders. CPL Chief Executive O'Donoghue says the August 18 to September 10 tournament will be staged at 2 venues in Trinidad and Tobago. The Brian Lara Cricket Academy is slated to host 23 games, including the semi-finals and final. The Queen's Park Oval is to host 10 games. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.